I'll be back. I gotta show my buddy something on Twitch.
Okay,
Yeah.
fun.
What up, dude?
Not much. How you doing?
Pretty good. All right, load up Twitch, and I'll show you some stuff.
Okay.
Find a big boy to fight. Freaking big mob. I need a big mob. I guess we can do a little mob. I'll just take it slow, so I don't kill it too fast. Okay. So this is my weak aura suite, or not really a suite, but I have a bunch of weak aura groups. See, there's all sorts of shit on my screen. But the main ones I use for rogue, I have this thing I made called Power Track. So for rogue, it keeps track of my combo points. Also, it'll say 0 through 4 is like regular little numbers. And then once it reaches 5 or 6, it'll glow red. That is just a visual notification to me that I need to make sure I'm spending next and I'm not over-generating combo points. And then I have another thing with energy, and then this thing is set to be, if it's below 60 energy, it's red. I could probably change that later, but when I'm pooling, because I'm about to try to burst, I want to be above 60 before I go into Shadow Dance. Okay, so that's super important just for the rotation stuff, managing those combo points and managing that energy. So I have those, so I don't have to watch my bar or watch above the boss's or the mob's head. We can do some multi-dot stuff where we put Nightblade on multiple targets. Right now it doesn't really seem to be much of a DPS increase because mobs don't have super crazy health, but I think once we get into Mythic Plus and our gear scaling gets up, I think multi-dotting is going to be much more important. Let's talk about my hotkeys real quick. I don't have a whole lot of macros for my rogue. I have a bunch of mouse over stuff like we talked about before. For blind, I've got a mouse over target, sap, tricks of the trade, pickpocket on Shadow Strike. However, this is really important. I actually just got this to work. So we have our Shadow Dance. This thing is pretty much our burst window. Sub is very burst. So we do everything in a small period of time, and then the rest of the time we're kind of slowly generating and spending, trying to, they call it pooling your energy, trying to get your energy in a position to be able to burst again when your shit comes up. So this particular thing here will not allow me to double hit my Shadow Dance on accident and spend both Shadow Dances. And because, and that's because stance equals 0, so it means when I'm just in my regular stance, I'll Shadow Dance, and it'll automatically Shadow Strike. So Shadow Dance is not on GCD. I don't have a problem, like, hitting my Q and then my 3 button, without losing any time, but it's nice that it'll just automatically do it with 1 button. And while Shadow Dance is up, I could actually just spam Shadow Dance for it to Shadow Strike, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, the way I set my bars up is, I have my bars in stealth and not stealth pretty much mirrored. Nightblade 1, Secret Technique 2, Backstab 3, Eviscerate 4, then the same in stealth. Nightblade, Secret Technique, Shadow Strike, and Eviscerate. And that's pretty much the primary. Now, The weak aura. Oh, I also have a rogue. I have a couple of rogue suites that I made. So this one I found somewhere. It's just rogue buffs. I got rid of quite a few of them. Symbols of Death, Nightblade, Shadow Dance. The Nightblade one's not super important for me because my rotation manager will track it. So I don't really need to pay attention to it. Shadow Dance is nice to know when it's up. I actually made a different one, and then Symbols of Death is nice to know when it's up because you want to know when you're generating that increased damage and that energy. I keep track of some rogue defensives down here above my thing, and they just give icons when they're used. Like if I use my cloak, you see it shows that cloak is up, it's like flashing. And that actually should pop up down here too. I have to be in combat. If I'm in combat, I have a bar here that has a timer that shows when that's still up. But then this stuff will be desaturated when I'm out of, you know, when those are gone and they're waiting to refresh. I use, for rogue stuff, I have a few things in here, okay? Now this looks like a bunch of stuff, like repeated, but there's a reason for it. These are stacked on top of one another, right? So this is like Symbols of Death during the cooldown. This is Symbol of Death while it's up. And this is Symbol of Death while I don't have anything. And each of them are, each of them have different stuff going on with them. So, and I'll show you that in a second. But in here, I'm keeping track of Shadow Blade time. That's our 3-minute cooldown. This thing gives you crazy additional damage. Your point generators get an additional combo point and 50% damage. So this is the shit. Like, you don't want to use this on trash. You want to save this when you're getting to a boss. This is why in my rotation manager I don't have cooldowns enabled, because, you know, it would suggest using this on cooldown, which if you were doing a raid boss, yeah, you'd want to use this on cooldown or line it up with mechanics. But for specifically doing dungeons, I just want to save that, and I'll use that pretty much immediately when I go into combat on a boss, but I will not use it on trash. It's important to keep track of Shadow Dance. So Shadow Dance off of cooldown, and I have how many charges I have to the left. This is important too. My rotation manager will always suggest pop and Shadow Dance, but you have to think ahead, right? So I want to try to go into a fight with either one Shadow Dance and a second Shadow Dance about to come up, or 2 Shadow Dances. I don't ever want to kill the last trash mob and then go into a fight and I have no Shadow Dances up, okay? So this is something that I pay pretty keen attention to. But so let's talk about my Hakili. Okay, Hakili is this rotation manager. I love it. There's some other ones out there, like you can do suites with weak auras, or you can do suites with tell me when. They're both just as usable. This I just find is really, really easy. I have it set up so it will automatically, where is it? I have it set so automatic versus single, so using only the primary display, toggle between automatic target counting and single target recommendations, mode automatic. So this this primary bar, I have it set for displaying what it's suggesting now and what my next button will be. I used to have it show 4, and I think 4 is the default. You can set it for 10, like it tells you what order of shit you're going to be doing. But all I need is 2, because sometimes I don't want to use what the primary suggestion is. I want to use the next suggestion, and that's because either I'm saving a cooldown or whatever. The thing with rotation managers and why they get a lot of criticism is because they're not perfect and they can't think for you. They can tell you what to do in that specific second, but they can't think ahead. So people who use them and only do what it tells them to do, they're going to have less than perfect, or less than, you know, preferred outcome with them. Where if you use this as more of a suggestion, but you understand how your class works and you're managing your stuff, you'll have great success. I don't have this interrupts thing turned on because I have a weak aura that I use, plus where I keep when a target's casting, I see it. But I have this thing, target cast big bar. So whenever a mob is casting something that is interruptible, see here, trigger, all triggers, status, cast on my target, interruptible, this icon pops up. So I've programmed myself that when I see this thing pop up, I can press Alt-T, which is my interrupt, and I'll interrupt it. So I can confidently say that I interrupt things more than anybody. Doesn't mean I'm always interrupting the right thing. Sometimes you don't want to interrupt that first cast. It's the second ability they do you want to interrupt. But I can confidently say that there's pretty much nobody faster than me at interrupting, just because I have this weak aura that I'm fucking practice over and over and over again. Alright, so let's get into this actual rotation manager. So I have it displayed. So visibility is 0. Most of my characters I have it target 0 as well, but I have it enabled for targeting because as a rogue, it's going to suggest that I stealth. For whatever reason, the buttons, what it tells you the button is, doesn't work for my shift stuff. But I know that icon's my stealth. So this is suggesting for my next ability to use is my stealth. So I'm going to go into stealth, and it's saying, okay, my next thing is my backstab, or my shadow strike, right? Because I'm in stealth. I've got 2 charges of this up. So I'm going in, okay, I backstab. Now it's telling me I'm going to Nightblade. I should have two combo points. I actually had 3 combo points. So I'm Nightblading early. Okay, I'm doing my Symbols of Death, Shadow Dance, okay, and I'm just following that. Now that mob died super quick. I want to find a like a much bigger mob, but now I'm looking over here and tracking this. So I got 48 seconds until that second Shadow Dance comes up, but I have 1 up, so it's not too bad. Let's see if we can find a big mob, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the training dummies in Dalaran, and I'll show you there. And ooh, and while I'm there, I can get free 5,000 gold. What's that, Dorich? Now, I have this displayed that I will always see this, even out of combat, which is a little annoying when you're just walking around town. You know, your UI is like clean as fuck, but you got this stupid icon here. But it's important because I need to know, what I'm gonna have going into a fight so I can manage this properly. Poor resource management is, I mean, this game is all about resource management, so if you don't do that effectively... Okay, cool. Oh, it's 2,500 gold now, that's bullshit. Alright, so training dummies. So this is gonna be a little weird, like, don't really care about the DPS because there's a bunch of mobs here. Is there a raider dummy? Training, raiders training dummy.
Did you figure out what the reset on that was?
It's every week, it resets on Tuesday. But they nerfed it from 5,000 to 2,500. Okay, so I'm in stealth already. I have a target, so my thing pops up suggesting this. So just kind of watch how this works, right? 6 combo points. It's recommended me spending. Shadow dancing. Now this little thing right here that's like kind of counting down, this is telling me like seconds to pool, and that's mainly because I don't have any energy. Now, I didn't use my shadow blades here. Again, 3-minute cooldown. But just follow this rotation. Now, for trash packs, the only difference is Shuriken Storm, where you have like big multiple packs. And I don't know. Oh yeah, here it should suggest for these two. Okay, they don't stay engaged in the training dummy. But basically, the way your AoE rotation ends up working, instead of like backstabbing or shadow striking to generate combo points, you Shuriken Storm, because it gives you 1 combo point per target hit. right?
For that, you use that Shuriken Storm Eviscerate.
Yeah, exactly. So you Shuriken Storm, Eviscerate, but you still want to do your Nightblade and your secret techniques. Oh, let's talk about spec. So, right now, for dungeon spec, this is what you want to do. 2, 3, 2, 0, 0, meaning you can, any of these are fine. I do cheat death, it's like a death save if you die. And then 1, 2, Dark Shadow secret technique. For single target raids will probably be Marked for Death, Enveloping Shadows, and Master of Shadows. But for dungeons, and at first I really didn't like this, but I really, really, really like Dark Shadow secret technique and Deeper Stratagem. Deeper Stratagem allows you to have 6 combo points, which if you remember me talking about my weak aura, for my power tracking, I have the combo points, so it will display red if it's 5 or 6, and I have that specifically because I have that thing for 6. The other thing for the stuff I sent you the other day, for the like the BFA dungeons, so BFA dungeon, you know, I have basically, you know, my rotation is like here. My rogue cooldown things are here. My big interrupts here. I have all, you know, my DBMs up on this side of the screen. So I have a lot of open space. My windows are not super cluttered, but I want information when I need it. So I have my dungeon weak aura set up over here. So let's say I'm fixated by the fucking dude in whatever dungeon it's called. I'm gonna get a little icon here. It says fixated and kind of counting down how much time is left. I find these a little bit more useful than DBM because you can have notes underneath it that tell you specifically what you want to do. Sometimes I edit these because it's either more of a big deal than it looks just based on the weak aura, or it's not, or there's something specific I need to do. Like maybe there's a warning ability that something does. Trying to think of a good example. I don't know these new dungeons well enough to give you a good example, but sometimes there'll be an ability that's non-interruptible, meaning instead of it being a gray cast bar, it's a red cast bar. Now you can stun mobs out of that. So we have a couple options to stun mobs out of that. We can kidney shot, right? So if I know that's coming or it starts casting, I need to make sure that, hey, don't spend real quick because I need a combo, at least one combo point to stun the mob. And some mobs you can stun, some mobs you can't, and that's why I'd edit some of these to help remind me until, you know, you've done them hundreds of times and you know. The other ability is blind. Blind, you can, you know, interrupt that uninterruptible casts. They typically start casting right afterwards, but if you stun lock a mob, you can get it dead before it gets off a big cast. So these are super handy for me in dungeons, like super duper duper handy for me. But yeah, it's all about that. It's all about that rotation. I mean, the idea behind it is basically you're stealthing at the start of the fight. You teleport in with Shadow Strike, right? This generates 2 combo points. And you're going to Nightblade, right? Which is an early spend. So typically you want to get all of your combo points up, but we need to get that dot ticking and then go back into generating and spending. So it'll typically be, you know, teleport in, Shadow Strike, Nightblade, will be shadow dancing, generating, secret technique, and then over to eviscerate. Secret technique has a pretty long cooldown, which gets, I think this one, yeah, this one gets shortened. Does this get shortened? Yeah, it's reduced by 1 second for every combo point you spend. Look at that typo in there. Cooldown is reduced by 1 second. So, you know, spends 45-second cooldown, but now you're generating and spending eviscerates at, you know, 5 or 6 points. Now you don't want to overcap, right? So if you're generating 2 combo points and you're at 5 combo points, you don't want to go to 6 combo points because you're now overcapping. Now you're generating 2, but you're only able to use 1, so it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of that energy because the energy problem we have is huge. I'm sure you probably run into where you can't use any abilities because they're all gray, and that's because of energy. They call that being energy starved, and out of the energy classes, they all have that problem, especially early on in the expansion, before you get like decent gear or you get other synergistic abilities that give you stuff. I have a really cool bookmark cheat sheet for Rogue. I'll send to you. It has some really good information that's being updated pretty regularly. I guess there's this guy, Infectious. I think he's a Scottish dude, and I guess he's like a big dick rogue. So he's got basically all the raid bosses, what talents you want to use for those bosses. Which, so like if you look at his talents in here, for subtlety, it's like 2330031. 2330031. See, it'll be Mark for Death, Enveloping Shadows, Master Shadows, likely when we get to the raid tier. But he's got best in slot gear and Azurite traits priority. Like Blade and Shadow is our #1 priority. I think I have 1 Blade and Shadow. So you only get Azurite traits on your hat, your shoulders, and your chest. But I have a bunch of extra stuff in my bags because I'm checking on them to see which ones have the best traits. Because if you have a bunch of crap with really shitty traits, it might be worthwhile. I say might because I don't know yet. It might be worthwhile to stack ones that have the best traits. But he does have a nice BIS list for pre-raid, so it has, you know, all the dungeons. Like, for example, our hat, if we can get the captain's hat in Freehold from the boss Harlan, that sounds like the best hat. Shoulders, Machinations in Atal Dazar from Yasma. And then our chest is from Spymaster and Atal Dazar also from Yasma. So I don't have any of those. I don't think I think I might have 1 BIS item, which is loaded dice is second best for 2 targets or 3 targets. Basically 2 targets or more. But I mean, that's pretty much it. It's in my opinion, it's impossible to keep track of all the stuff you need to keep up if you're not using weak auras or some other addition to keep track of your stuff, because Nightblade is kind of finicky. All right, so let me show you. So what? Again, I'm a Hakili fan. Hakili uses the class APL, which is the action priority list. So the simulation craft people come up with what is going to be the absolute best rotation for a character. So you can actually import your character, have it run 10,000 iterations of you engaging a mob, and it'll tell you your bottom end, your high end, and what your average damage should be. And it's kind of a scaled thing where you may have one fight where you got all the worst luck in the world and you may be 12k DPS. You may have one fight where you got all the best luck in the world and you're at 16k DPS. But 90% of your stuff is going to be somewhere in this, like, you know, 14k range or whatever the number will be. But so it has, where is it? Action packs. So subtlety. So it has these action lists, right? So CDs, if you have them turned on, I have CDs turned off. Run action lists, stealthed, if stealth. Nightblade, stealths, finishers, builds. And these are all in priorities. And that looks pretty confusing right out the gate. But when you get into the actual action list and you go through those, so like, let's see, build. Wait a minute. What am I trying to do here? Yeah, here we go. So let's say I am in build, right? So it's going to suggest Shuriken Storm if I have greater than or equal to 2 targets, and Buff the Dreadlord's Deceit stack is greater than or equal to 29. Now, I don't even know what Buff the Dreadlord's Deceit stack is. It's probably either something to do with a legendary or something on here. Like, they've put a lot of time into any possible combination of gear and specs and other shit you have. A bunch of this stuff doesn't mean anything to what you're trying to do. But it's in here in case you try doing something different, right? So, like, here we go. This is under stealth CDs. So this is priority 1. So it's variable, and it's a Shadow Dance threshold. So if my cooldown of Shadow Dance, can't even see the whole thing. Anyway, if you go through these, like, it'll help you understand why it's suggesting you to do stuff, right? So here's a good example. So 5th priority in here. Again, there are duplicates depending on what your spec is, because you want different stuff with different priorities depending on shit. So if you're not talented for Dark Shadow, and dot Nightblade remains greater than or equal to 5, so that's if there's 5 seconds or less, or 5 seconds or more, plus talent subterfuge enabled, and the variable Shadow Dance threshold, or buff symbols of death remains greater than or equal to 1.2, spell targets greater than or equal to 4, and cooldown symbols of death remains greater than 10. So that's a good example of that is the correct suggestion that should happen. It should suggest Shadow Dance if all of those conditions are met. That is a good example of why weak auras or rotation managers or tell me when or something like that are good. Because it's suggesting this when all of these items are met, right? So some of them are not dynamic, right? So talent subterfuge enabled, you either have that enabled or you don't, right? So if you look over me mousing over these conditions and it shows these values, you can see on there values, buff symbols of death remains, I have 0 because it's not up. Cooldown symbols of death remains 0 because I have 2 charges. Dot Nightblade remains 0 because I don't have any Nightblade on my target. Spell targets, if any, 1. I don't know why it automatically shows 1. Talent Dark Shadow enabled true. Talent Subterfuge enabled false. Variable Shadow Dance threshold true. I don't know if just me mousing over this, if this stuff will change if I do this. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So you see how I spent my symbol of death just to see, and I remoused over, and you see how those values now change? It's because this is searching for all of these conditions to be met to then suggest that I use my Shadow Dance. And this stuff is really, really difficult to keep track of, right? Especially when there's a lot of stuff going on. In my personal opinion, for higher WoW gameplay, your rotation should be mainly muscle memory. You should never spend any time like thinking about what you're going to do, because you have to be paying attention to mechanics, you have to be doing interrupts, you have to be paying attention to positions. In these big pulls that you end up pulling, you'll have a mob that does a frontal, and that frontal he'll randomly turn to a direction in frontal. You may have 2 or 3 of that same mob in a pack, and they're going to turn different directions and frontal. So you're a rogue, if you're focusing on your spending, which that's a bad habit that people who do use a rotation manager have, all they do is watch that little fucking button and hit that. The point to that is you should be using mainly your, like, periphery for looking at what it should suggest, and you should be spending the majority of your time watching the floor. And, I don't know. I would strongly recommend giving this a try. My Achilles I have set up a little weird, like I showed you. I have it set up so it just displays 2. I set mine up just above to the right of my character. I think the default is like down here, and it suggests like 4. I personally don't like the giant bar in 4. I just like it small, just above my character. So I know that if I get lost, like if my little character, I'm zoomed out all the way, if my little character gets lost in a bunch of fire or a bunch of mobs, I know he's somewhere like down and slightly to the left of this. Some people will use a ring around their character. Like we had a boss fight. The last guy, Argus the Unmaker. There was an ability that you had to like get the fuck out with. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. Gaze radius indicator. So, if it was green, you were not next to anybody and you were safe. If it was red, you're not safe. So I put mine around my character, so I didn't even have to like look down there. I could just keep on doing what I was doing. But I could see in my periphery, if that shit was green, I was good. If it was red, I was wrong. So, and if you notice, like, WoW's a little weird. When you zoom out, the camera goes slightly back to the left. Like, if you see here, I'm like this is 0, 0. Or at least it should be 0, 0. Oh, it's not 0, 0. There we go. Okay, so that is 0, 0. That is dead center of my screen. So if you notice, you're kind of like over your own shoulder. So that's something to keep in mind too when doing mechanics and shit, that your character is not necessarily like dead center where your character box is. Did any of this stuff say I said help? Oh, here's my external. So if I use Cloak of Shadows, I get a yellow bar with a timer. Like here we go. Cloak of Shadows.
Yeah, the problem is that I don't know how to set all that up to begin with.
I mean, it takes a little bit of time. I mean, you have weak auras installed, right?
I have weak auras too.
Yeah, I mean, Weak Auras 2 is just the updated version of Weak Auras. So there's a suite that I installed because I wanted to test it out. And I actually took a couple icons from here, like I literally removed them and then repurposed them in my own shit. But this is like typically what a suite looks like. It's got a bunch of bullshit going on. Shit you don't need to track in here. Or at least shit that I don't care about tracking since I use a rotation manager. And there's a lot of crap in here. Like, this has Nightblade debuff. No use. How do you pull up weak auras?
Yeah.
/WA.
Okay.
So I'll show you how to, I'll give you a quick rundown on how to do weak aura shit real quick. So if I go to wago.io, the Wago, I don't even know how you say it, the wago.io. And you click on weak auras. I'm going to go to rogue. I'm just going to import a complete rogue suite. So I'm going to look for something with a lot. Here we go. 8.0 Morph Complete Rogue Part 1 of 2. He's got 29,000 views. I'm going to copy the weak auras import string. I'm going to go to now back in game. I'm going to go to new. I'm going to go import. I'm going to paste it, Control V. So it's telling me what all is going to be imported. I'm going to import. And let's see where it went. Here we go. It's over here. So this is kind of neat. Now, here, let me hide my Achilles. Okay, so this is what is in this suite. So let's go through these. So it shows combo points. All right, so he's got a little bar going for combo points. So that thing's combo points. I'm going to guess this thing is energy. Combo points, deep stratagem, poison missing, text window. So this has for all the rogues. Crimson Vial. Outlaw ability, riposte, shadow dance. Let's go test this bad boy out. Okay, loading. Okay, I'm going to turn my Achilles on to 0. It's funny because of how I have my stuff set up. Like, I'm going to do significantly worse using this, just because I'm unfamiliar with it. I'm unfamiliar where to look for my tracking shit. Like, my eyes are never locked on how many combo points I have, because my suggestion is already keeping track of that. Although I do have that icon when it hits red, so I'll see it to make sure that I don't make a bad choice if I'm doing something outside of what the rotation recommends. Or if I know I have like a kidney shot having to come up, since that'll never be recommended because it's not best for damage. Alright. See, I already overcapped there. Because now I'm having to look up more stuff, and I fucking ran out of energy. Yeah, I'm doing really poorly here. Just because I'm now like focusing on this combo points, or I'd be focusing on the like nameplate combo points. That's why I like it right here. See the combo points: 2, 3, up to 4, 5, bend. That's why I don't really like these sweet things. I mean, the information is good and the information is important, but I waste a lot of time looking at it when I don't want to be looking at it. But that's how you import something. It's super duper easy. It takes a good little while to figure out what's going on. So like, go ahead.
What was changing during that? I really didn't see anything actually changing.
Yeah, so
Where your Q was.
Where my what was?
Where your Q was for what I was telling you to actually use.
Oh, that's what I was saying. I was just gonna try with just this suite, and I was gonna turn off my rotation manager. Like, so with just a regular weak aura that's like tracking your abilities, it's not suggesting anything. Like, you need to know what you need to press. And it's a lot of stuff to keep track of that it's just, personally, my personal opinion is it's a waste of time, like, looking at this shit. So that finished pretty poorly, 6.1k. So of its Shadow Blades isn't up, so this DPS is going to be a little bit lower. But let's see the difference between finishing at like 6.1 and this. The shitty part of the rotation where you don't have any energy. That's the other thing. So because my energy is bad, I have a Shadow Dance charged up right here. You see that one? But my energy's bad, so I'm waiting for the Symbols of Death to come back up before it's going to recommend, or at least for Symbols of Death to come back somewhere in the thing, so I can start really kicking some ass again. I personally don't like these training dummies, because you can't get behind them, and like, I want a spot that only has one training dummy, like, just by itself, and then I want a spot that has like 3 that'll stay engaged with you. These guys will, if you hit one, they don't stay engaged for some reason. Okay, my Shadow Blades came up during that, so I saved it to time with when I was going to have Symbols of Death and when I was going to be Shadow Dancing. I probably got a decent spike of damage in that. Alright, let's disengage from that crap. See, you see here, like, my secret traits and Azurite globules, they hit another training dummy. Like, I don't want that. I want to just do one fucking training dummy. I hate these training dummies. But anyway, if you install, now let me swap to another character, and I'll... Why didn't I do that? Let me swap to another character. I'll go default for Achilles. just to show you. Alright, so this is what the default looks like, right? So the default has what hotkey button it is in the top right-hand corner. And then it has the 4 abilities. So... let's go find a dude. These are all like one hit, so this is probably good, not really a good thing. But this is what the default would look like, right? And it's really easy to go in and change it. Do slash Achille. Drag that to the side. Displays. Primary display. Gonna change my icons to 2. Gonna change my visibility to advanced. Where it's in combat. I don't want it when I have a target on this character. On my rogue I do. Main, I'm gonna change, I prefer 25 height and width for the main. The Q, 25, 25. Now when you're changing it, you leave that visibility to 1 so you know where it is. Now I want to line it up to a specific spot in my LVUI, so I'm going to do slash EC to pop up my LVUI. I'm going to go to toggle anchors. I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this to that square right there. Lock that bitch. Put that back to 0. And I am good to go. Like this is a setup for me. Let me get to this guy. Fucking Death Knights are so slow. And he fucking killed it before I got there. Anyway, just know that when I start smashing some dude, I'm gonna have my pop up in the position that I want. It's that easy to get going. I mean, you install it. It keeps updated with like their internal stuff, and if you want to reload the action pack priority list, you can literally re-import. It'll tell you where it comes from. So for Frost DK, this is a pack of action lists for Achille. You're probably gonna be surprised about the opener. I was a blit, ERW feels odd, but blah blah blah, and so it like tells you what's going on in here, right? So, July 20th, they updated the APL from Simulation Craft, made the above changes and modified the ABL logic to account for ERW having 2 charges with a legendary ring. I mean, these guys are so on top of shit. They are so on top of shit that they know stuff that a good majority of the players don't even notice is like, there was a change. So, it allows you to really just kind of get in there and do shit. And again, a lot of people look down on rotation managers. They're like, learn your class, don't be a noob. The thing is, I do know my class, but I don't want to spend time, like, wasting time on shit that I don't care about. The problem with it is, if for some reason all of your, like, let's say tomorrow, no add-ons ever work ever again, it would be pretty shitty, but...
I think that one of my major problems right now is that I do have Shadow.
Yeah.
Like, I have Shadow Dance with Shadow Strike, but I think that I was using it twice, maybe, instead of, like, I didn't really realize there was a second charge to it.
Yeah, and that's why I made that macro, because there were a couple times where I had accidentally hit the wrong target. Or accidentally hit that button twice and then get fucked. I'm gonna turn off the stream.